Hey, listen, let's talk about money laundering. No, I'm not about to tell you how to launder money or how to evade taxes or any of those things that maybe some people from where I come from are used to. What I'm here to tell you about is some changes that have literally just come in force with property in Australia that most people are at risk of being caught by. The reality is that if you are working with somebody who doesn't know what they're doing, or maybe you're working with one of those buyer's agents that have been around for 5 minutes, the reality is they probably don't even know that they're subject to a new set of legislation that is very likely to get them caught and can make your next property deal a massive disaster. Listen, from the 1st of July, we came into effect the new tranche of anti-money laundering and counter-terrorism finance legislation. And as part of that legislation, property now is considered a high-risk asset. And every single real estate agent out there, every single buyer's agent out there, and anyone who is involved in transactions around property, it's now on their scope. Many people know that I used to work for the anti-fraud department on a major bank in Europe, actually the 5th biggest bank in Europe. And because of that, I understand fraud and money laundering probably in ways that I wish I didn't have to deal with. But the advantage of having that in place is I've always have a very, very good understanding of what these programs need to look like, and particularly how we could implement something like this at Stone Horizon in a way where it doesn't really impact our clients, it doesn't really impact our transactions, and it doesn't really impact or increases any risk to you as an investor. However, it is very, very important that we comply with this legislation, because the last thing that you want is your property to be seized or your money to be frozen. That's what happens when you don't know what you're doing. Now, I'll be talking more about this, but the reality is it's probably going to be very, very transparent. We might ask you a few questions about where the money is going to come from and kind of where, if you have any connections to politically exposed persons, or a couple of the traditional questions that you're probably used to being asked by your bank. And to be honest, your bank is probably going to ask you very similar questions when you start spending money in property. But I thought I'll let you know that depending on the transaction and depending on the parties of those transactions and who is facilitating it, there's a massive amount of risk that if the legislation is not complied with, that's when the real trouble starts. And believe me, you don't want your transaction to be flagged. You don't want your transaction to be suspected of being involved in money laundering or counter-terrorism finance, because that's when things can become really, really hard. If you have any questions about all of this stuff, if you're a little bit scared about what this means, then feel free to post a comment below and I'll be happy to answer your questions.